Well, hi everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. This is where we talk about all things spiritual and particularly topical spiritual topics, including predictions and all sorts of stuff if you've not been to this channel before. But today, I want to talk about some of the signs that we may be seeing for the coming of the new golden age, and particularly address some of the issues that we have with mental health today, and how can we navigate the spiritual turmoil of the world. Well, it seems that the world is in crisis today, doesn't it? Everything around the world is falling to pieces, it seems. Where you look at Israel, Gaza, and you've read my predictions. I expect how I feel that's going to escalate, how we're going to have problems with the West Bank ahead, and how we're going to have problems also with Iran. And then there's other things going to be happening. We've got all sorts of environmental problems ahead. We've got floods of national borders being broken again, people pouring into Europe and America. We're going to have more of this ahead as all these crises begin to escalate and become worse. I question sometimes, why can't the Muslim countries take the refugees that are obviously going to be created in these crises? But anyway, this we see all around the world similar problems, horrors in Ukraine, and I predict more horrors to come as well, even others. I think, for example, here's another prediction, actually, that's not in my main predictions. I feel there's going to be a war in Venezuela. There's going to be some crisis in Venezuela happen. I feel sorry. That's another one. It's just coming to me as I talk to you, because as soon as I start doing these things, I start getting tuned in and start feeling stuff as well. But this is not so much of a prediction today. I want to look at some of the more hopeful signs that we're going to have ahead. But I think the big malady, the big illness, the big problem that the world has at the moment is not so much the external crisis, but the internal crisis that so many people are having. How would you kind of um, describe the spirit of the age at the moment? Maybe you could put a point. What would you say in the comments? What is the spirit of the age we live in? What is the mentality? What is the energy of this time? You know, to me, it's a time of division. I don't think there's been such a period of division for a long time. Lots of spiritual division too, between religious ideas, political ideas, left and right ideas, wokey ideas, and right ideas, and whatever you want to look at it. But there's all sorts of divisions, even between the sexes and everything. This is supposed to be a time of trying to find unity within diversity, but so often that goes wrong, doesn't it? And I think it's creating a lot of problems in people. We're getting much more a feeling of people seem to be very selfish. I mean, people have always been selfish, but there seems to be a very powerful sense of selfishness nowadays and entitlement nowadays. And if you criticize anything, you're seen as a real enemy. You're not allowed to criticize. You take offense if your ideas are countered by somebody. Not even allowed to speak up. And we see it in businesses, we see it in politics, and we see it in day-to-day life, and we see it in education as well. And I think it's creating in people a sort of a trauma. But can we go from this period of trauma into a period of triumph? Can we reverse this? I think we can. And I think this is why the spiritual kind of forces in the world today are more vitally important than ever. and more lacking perhaps than ever. But, people are watching channels like this and other ones, and we're thinking about these things and we're hoping we can find a way through. And I think when we do start to find the way through, we can reverse this um, malady of society, this mental ills of society, as it were. I mean, just think about the mental ill itself first. Before we can solve the illness, we must first look at it and understand it, describe it and even admit it, particularly with internal problems. Some people today seem to look at mental illness and I call it mental illness. It's not strictly mental illness, but they kind of choose from psychology books and stuff they read online and choose mental illness almost as a form of um, sort of a badge of honor, isn't it? It's a sort of a badge of honor. My poor behavior can be excused because I have this or that mental deficiency. I can excuse it. So there's no taking responsibility of these things, and often people will claim mental disability to cover their what I would call just their normal psychological weaknesses. Nothing psychiatric about it, just normal daily weakness in people. And it seems to be almost like people almost take pride of having no self-control, take almost pride in having no self-discipline in themselves. And so I'm seeing sort of what we call it's a big issue, mental health, and it's one that needs addressing because in society, serious mental health is not being addressed, and poor guys are put up and women are put up on the streets, when they should be really institutionalized. But often people using mental health, isn't it, as an excuse for their own weakness. Now, that's pretty contentious, but, I mean, I've also, I've dealt a lot with people's mental health often really, because when you're a medium, you do get people asking you about their mental health issues, and actually sometimes it just needs to be explained, but, this isn't something that you can't control or that you must always have drugs for. You obviously advise people to follow their doctor's advice, but it's often a case that, these things are just natural psychological weakness that is being created, is it not, because of the society we live in. Now, I've heard people say to me, "I can't go to work because it makes me feel depressed." Well, great. No, let's all give up. It makes everybody feel depressed, surely. Someone actually said that comment to me, and I saw it in one of the comments to one of these videos once. I think someone commented as well. But really, the remedy for that sort of depression, really, the remedy for those type of depressions is hard work and activity. Those are often the things that are remedy for, if you're stuck in a depressed state. And I'm not, see, the problem is this whole idea of mental health. It's gone from stigma that used to be in the past to kind of a status now. It's gone from stigma to status. So I feel that sometimes don't some people nowadays kind of self-indulge in self-diagnosis. It's so easy to look these terms up on the internet, and this is where they start to sort of get into all sorts of traps, which could be permanent traps. We used to call sadness, we used to call things people would call sad. People feel sad after a problem, but now it's called sadness is always called depression. It's never called sadness. It's always depression, isn't it? Which is a much more clinical sounding word for something that really is perhaps quite natural, and something that we will naturally get over, and something that is part and parcel of the problem of being a human being, you know? Yeah, so it's poor mental health has become quite a problem condition. Just the same way we call poor concentration, don't we? Poor concentration is immediately ADHD. But that's just bad concentration, bad personal discipline, perhaps. And what's what we used to call perhaps teenage angst. Teenagers have angst, don't they? All teenagers go through that thing, but immediately that now becomes a personality disorder. We put another badge onto it, and it kind of excuses you dealing with it. Because this sounds so much more permanent and unchangeable. So these conditions can be very problematic, I think, because people run to the doctors, they describe things they've seen on the internet, they've pumped themselves full of all sorts of psychoactive type of drugs that are needed to deal with these things. And, this is something they might have to take for the rest of their lives. And these are huge decisions made at possible times when you're just weak because you haven't, you know, you're making major changes at a time when really you should be thinking and adjusting to life. I don't know. Am I wrong with this? I don't want to be horrible to people because obviously these conditions do affect you. But is this not part of what I'm saying is kind of the malady of the age? Our inability, it seems, to deal with what were once fairly normal everyday problems and have become perhaps exaggerated out of proportion. Now I got a grandson who's he's got, I suppose they would call it high functioning autism. But I don't see that as a problem in any means whatsoever. Obviously, he gets the proper treatment things for things like that. But I just think some people are wired differently, and can come up with completely new ways of looking at the world and can completely think outside the box. And even these things can sometimes be a little bit on the edge of genius sometimes. So, how we look at it, should we always see these things as such a big problem and such a problem in the age? But I think a lot, where's it coming from, you see? I think a lot of this is coming from the way we are now interacting with the world, the way we are now particularly dealing through social media, and particularly through the way we look at the world um, uh, uh, in through the eyes now of a computer and the rest of it. These are things that I think are drawing us down. So in our own lives, we're always going to have crisis. We're always going to have trauma, aren't we? We're always going to have adversity of some sort. But what do? Do we let this destroy us? And if we approach it in the right way, surely this could actually help our spiritual progress. I definitely wouldn't be the person today that I am today, which is a bleeding idiot, some of you might say, but I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't through the adversity and the hard parts of life. And I think most mediums usually go through a pretty traumatic periods in their life, and generally because it brings out, if it can break you or make you, and if it makes you, it can bring out the empathy in you, and it can bring out a much more higher spiritual way of thinking. Um, so, but the forces that are around us at the moment that are destroying our inner peace and the stability of our happiness, there's forces that are pulling us away from a natural inner stability and natural happiness in our life. These things really, I think, can be put down particularly to social media, um, gaming, online gaming, um, playing video games, all these sort of things. I think break down the sense of self-worth that people have. Even the exposure to advertising. Advertising always doesn't try to sell you a product. It always tries to sell you an idea. And if you look at the ideas that it's putting forward, it's always about how do I look? How do I feel? More concerned about the product itself. But this makes you more of a better person by having this. This gives you more esteem. And people are broken down by this idea of esteem all the time. Nobody's prepared, to ever make a fool of themselves. I am. You only need to watch this channel. But this is one of the things. This is this huge egotism that's developing in society because we're too scared of how we look and how it looks to others. So we're too scared to speak out. And everybody wants to look good, don't they? Everybody wants to look good. But, if we approach trauma and crisis in the right way, these can be stepping stones to permanent happiness, a greater sense of self-worth and a greater sense of stability within ourselves. Like, again, one of the problems we have is non-competitiveness. I think this is damaging people very badly too, and it's part of the spiritual turmoil that's happening in the world. It's being encouraged in education. It's being encouraged in sports of all things. And it's being encouraged in the workplace where everybody tries to find common ground. But actually, common ground's not the way to progress things. Often we have to stand at different polarities of things and fight it out in order to come to a proper standpoint and come to a point where we can stand for what we believe and stand for our ideas and not be weakened by always having to conform. You see, this is all part of a kind of a conformity that's being put upon the world at the moment through these ideas. These ideas create a nations of conformists, nations of compliant people, nations of people who are not prepared to stand up and say enough is enough, or this is wrong, or this is not the way the life should be. You know, everybody has to conform. And the problem is, more than anything, these things are happening to the youth, the ones that should be shaking us out of our complacency, the ones that should be pushing society forward. Terrible conformity, which I think is another one of the ills of the spiritual demise of the world today. What do you think? Got a comment? I'd like to know what you think about non-competitiveness, for example. So these are some of the inner problems that are haunting humankind today, I feel, you know. And the problem is we don't know how to heal ourselves. We don't have a remedy. We don't know how to go about changing this in ourselves. So what can we do? What can we do to make things better? And if we do start making things better, maybe it could open up a whole new way of living, a whole new world for us. So I predict we'll find the answer. We will find the answer, and it will herald a new awakening in mankind. So I'm going to give you a few of my thoughts now on this. So perhaps we have to look for some remedies. Is there some way we can counter these problems in ourselves as well as in the world at large? I mean, some of the prophetic insights from ancient texts saw all this coming a long time ago, centuries ago. In that you see it in the predictions of things like the Puranas, for example, and other visionary writings. They give us some of the remedies. They saw this coming, and they can see also a new era coming too. So I'm not alone in what I've been saying with this. I think the first thing to understand is that the source of your despair is not external, it's internal. We got to learn that first. This is what we've forgotten. We've forgotten the inner life. We've forgotten the internal life. And it's through things like introspection that we can start to root out the sources and causes of our unhappiness. This is why we have to take what we call personal responsibility, one of the keynotes of spiritualism. And we can't even begin to heal this until we start to recognize the source of our problems. Instead of making everything kind of about us, this is where the world goes wrong most, I think. Everything's about us. It's a me, me, me. We got to reverse this foolishness, really. We got to completely turn that on its head. We must embrace the idea of doing service to the world to begin with, and start doing something rather important rather than wanting to be something. This is where the internet, particularly, and social media seem to destroy us the most. This is the quick fix, I think, to most problems in the world. It's a quick fix, but it still takes work. It takes work. And the deeper remedy, which also takes work, is to dive deep into the inner world. This requires study. It requires application of ideas that you've read. It requires spiritual techniques, some of them found in yoga, but in Taoism as well, and the contemplative side of Christianity, for example. And all the multitude of methods that are out there give us many, many routes up the mountain. And out of all the spiritual traditions we can draw from. And also our creative side too can become very important in this process. Art, music, dance, creativity generally can also play a big part in helping us to get back to that inner point, to become self-dependent in our creativity. That's something we're really losing. Everything's fed to us all the time. All the imagining is done for us in the world. And one factor that I think people kind of fail to embrace and even fear in many respects is the ability to be alone. This is a tremendous empowerment, actually, once you've developed sort of a spiritual self-discipline, a self-dependence, and to take personal responsibility for your life. That's the key to so much of it, actually. All a blame game. All it's about these conditions that I have, these problems that I have, all this thing about I must look good in front of everybody. Well, blow the world. Just be yourself and be comfortable being yourself. Be comfortable about being who you are. People even fear this, they fear being alone, really big time. But that's the key to it. You've got to be alone. You always are alone, like it or not. Even if you're in relationships and all the rest, you're still always alone. It's just you and the world. Now, another prediction that I made is that in my earlier predictions in my other videos, I spoke at length about the coming of a golden age. You remember I spoke about this, and this has to be an internal awakening of people. It can't come from some external force. External forces will trigger it. Spiritual people coming into the world will trigger it. These people, I believe, great beings are coming into the world to help pull us out of the problem. But they're only going to take us to one place. They're going to take us to the same place, and that is within. That is to understand that the inner world trumps the external world. They're going to show us how we can awaken within and help us to get more spiritual self-dependence. But you will remember I said that something major was going to happen, and that one of the things that I saw is that there's going to be places where this can happen. Me and Jane are trying to do this partly and a small scale with our spiritual center that we're trying to do in Italy. But there's going to be in a much, much bigger scale later on. Whole sections of this world are going to be turned eventually into retreats. And what I mean by that is whole areas, almost the size of countries, are going to become special places that are going to be put aside partly for nature, because we'll have to do that. But also those places are instead of going to be places of mass tourism and coaches and people sunbathing themselves and drinking cocktails in beautiful places. These places are going to eventually become, when the spiritual turning point starts to come, they're going to become places of solitude without social media, without electronics, places where we will go that are just back to basics. And people are going to need that, particularly with the advent of artificial intelligence and the continual clatter of media and distractions and the breakdown of attention that is happening in our mental training nowadays, where everything is tick box, everything is instant, everything is forms you fill out online, everything in your exams and things at school are tick box exams. All of that has got to be broken. And the only way that can be broken is by the old techniques of learning one-pointed concentration, of learning focus, of learning the empowerment that comes from solitude. And how will this happen? We will notice one day, and I think it will come soon. We're starting to see it. I've said before, I feel it's in my lifetime, and I feel it's going to come. It's going to become places, people, countries, and organizations are going to start putting aside areas of land which are going to become parks. But those parks are going to become some place where we can tune in again. I think places like Tibet are going to lead the line with this when it breaks from China eventually, and the Chinese Communist Party fails, and China takes on a new democracy, which is something I've spoken about a lot. It's going to be all over the world. But I want you now, guys, to help me herald this in. I'd like to do a little meditation with you now, just a short little meditation that we can do to send a visualization out for this to happen. Because thoughts are things. Thoughts make things change in our own lives, but thoughts can make things change in the world around us and collectively. So I want us to seed a thought for the future, a thought to bring about this prediction that I'm making. that there should be beautiful spiritual places, beautiful spiritual parks, etc., that are just for the minds of the world to get together and start this spiritual energy generation. So follow me now in a short meditation, please. Okay, so please join me now on a meditation to create a bit of a visualization for the future. You know, we say thoughts are things. So we're going to send our thoughts out, send our prayers out, send our inner visualizations out into the universal mind, into the etheric, whatever you want to call it, and bring this into manifestation in the real world. We're going to bring it into our lives. We're going to make it happen. We're going to make this not just a prediction, but a prediction that will happen. So our goal is to see with pure visual inner insight, to see the future as it is, see it as something that has almost already happened. We're going to be there. And as we do that, we will create the seeds of a new reality. So now let's relax. Get yourself relaxed and let all the pressures of the day fall away. Let all those pressures in the body just drop away. Sit comfortably, feel your spine comfortably relaxed in a straight position as we let all the pressures fall away from everything. Hangs off that spine, drops away. Body drops into a deep relaxation. We can feel the relaxation going through our arms, our shoulders, our torso. Feel an warm sensation of peace and ease through your legs right down to your feet. And all your face is relaxed. All the muscles of the face are just relaxing. Particularly around the eyes where we carry so much tension. Let all that just relax. Sink in. With every breath, every exhale, just sink deeper into that relaxation. Feel peace. Natural state. Just feel that place of peace as you move closer to the inner place of eternal and ever new peace. Just feel it there. Sit in that place. And from here, we're going to do a visualization. We're going to see the future as it should be, and particularly as it will be. Together we can make this happen. We will. So now join me on a journey into the future, where many of the world's challenges have found resolution. A time when things are at peace, where the world is beginning to find harmony again. Picture a time where technology now harmoniously serves all, and there's boundless free energy derived from the heart of the sun that renders much of our labour obsolete. Work transforms into worship. Vision a world governed by individuals of noble character and benevolent intent. In this era, true wealth is recognized as virtuous conduct. Now, in this time, vast expanses of the earth are transformed into spiritual sanctuaries, offering treats from the mundane and opportunities to attain an enlightened state of consciousness. These sanctuaries reject the trappings of the modern world, and they embrace simplicity and tranquility and contemplation. Places of great beauty. These places are no longer destroyed by mass tourism. Instead, we can see them now as they become spaces for the rite of passage of the young, maybe a refuge for profound reflection for the elderly and everybody. A place where individuals, families, can be at one with the world and learn the great new teachings that are emerging in the world at that time. teachings of inner peace, teachings of meditation, teaching of being one with the universe, teachings that take away violence, teachings that take us towards a state in which we are walking with God. Now immerse yourself in the feeling of these great beautiful places and feel the deep silence of meditation. Hear the spirit and the other realms of the universe converge. Once again, we find our connection. In this space, sense the guiding light of the higher beings, how they can herald us for a glorious future. Now, even if you're participating in this meditation, even for a moment, our collective thoughts are now joining together to contribute to the manifestation of these harmonious times. Visualize beauty of the sacred places that will be built. See the new spiritual benefactors who will walk the earth. Envision places like Tibet, with its magical mountains soaring into the heavens. Imagine it transforming into an international haven for spiritual pilgrimage. Be there. Picture yourself sitting, contemplating the grandeur of nature and guided by the ancient traditions. Now shift your focus again and see the jungles perhaps of South America. Feel around you the knowledge, the teaching of the shamans. Imagine here an international spiritual park emerging, offering profound insights that our ancient ancestors knew. Now again, shift your attention. Let's go somewhere else. Let's consider Ayers Rock in Australia. See it evolving into an international pilgrimage site. A space for genuine consideration of the universe, a place where we can look at the stars and feel the ancient spirit of the land. Be with this place. This is happening and transforming over the whole earth. Feel the whole earth unfolding into the new Satya Yuga. As we can now go to tropical islands, visualize lofty mountains. Maybe the same happening in places like the Sinai Desert. Revered sites like Stonehenge and vast regions of India, all metamorphosize into new sacred parks. See it vividly within the depths of your consciousness. Be there with it. Feel it in particular. Sense it. Know the peace. And every step you take towards this goal is a blessing not only for you, but for everyone. Believe in its inevitability. It shall come to pass. It will be one of the signs of the coming of the new golden age. Okay, thank you. And hopefully hold that image in your minds. Hold those pictures in your minds. Perhaps when you go to sleep tonight, or at a time when you've got a few moments, just visualize a future world full of beautiful places where spirituality can flourish. Places without all the social media, without all the clatter and noise. Simplicity itself, where we align ourselves with nature, we remove ourselves from the world, and vast numbers of people become absorbed in this new spiritual tradition that is evolving and will come in due course. Okay, thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that little addition today, and I look forward to seeing you again. Okay, don't forget to follow the channel. See you soon. Bye for now.
So do you like what I have to say? And do you like my work? Well, why don't you support my work? Have a look in the description below to go to my website, find out about psychic readings, find out about our NAADI readings with the Indian NAADI Oracle, buy my books and join my workshops online by Zoom. All there on the website psychics.co.uk.